The last person to know. Marcus Delaney was, by most measurable standards, an intelligent man. He could read a quarterly projection report and find the error on page 7 before the CFO finished his opening sentence. He could assemble flat-pack furniture without the instructions, navigate 3 connecting flights with a 7-year-old and a carry-on, and make a lasagna from scratch that his daughter Lily declared better than the restaurant one. But don't tell Grandma. He was not, it turned out, intelligent about Catherine. This was a thing people around him had apparently understood for quite some time without feeling the need to mention it to him directly. He would discover this later. He would discover it in the most humiliating, wonderful, irreversible way possible. But first, there were months of being oblivious. It started in November, 6 weeks after the beach. Catherine A. Miss Hale inside the building, Catherine in his head. Always Catherine in his head. A had begun stopping by his desk in a way that couldn't quite be explained by organizational hierarchy. Not every day, but often enough that Marcus's colleague Danny had started keeping an informal tally in a notes app, which Marcus also did not know about until later. She would stop and ask about a project, or about something he'd said in a meeting, or sometimes about nothing professional at all. Once she brought him a coffee, a black, no sugar, exactly right without being asked, and set it on his desk while he was on a call, and was gone before he could say thank you. He told himself this was how she managed people. Personal investment. She was known for it. Danny, watching from 3 desks over, quietly updated his tally. In December, Catherine held the department Christmas party at a restaurant she'd chosen herself, which she did not usually do. She sat next to Marcus for most of the evening. They talked about books, then about cities they'd lived in, then about the particular loneliness of being the last one awake in a house full of sleeping people. She'd had 1 glass of wine and her laugh had gotten freer, and Marcus had thought, she's extraordinary. And then he'd thought, she's my boss, get it together. He got it together. She looked at him across the table for a moment too long. He refilled her water glass and asked Danny about the Henderson account. Danny went home that night and texted his wife, "This man is going to be the death of me." January was when the signs became what any reasonable observer would call flagrant. Catherine started finding reasons to include Marcus in meetings above his level. She asked for his opinion on things she didn't need his opinion on. She remembered every small thing he mentioned in passing, that Lily's school play was the 15th, that he'd been trying to fix a leak under the kitchen sink for 3 weeks, that he hated the new coffee machine in the 3rd floor break room and would ask about these things days later with the careful attention of someone who had been genuinely listening. For Valentine's Day, which Marcus experienced as a non-event he actively tried to survive, she left a card on his desk. It was a plain white card. On the inside, in her handwriting, "For someone who always shows up." No name. But he knew. He spent 45 minutes deciding what it meant. He concluded it meant she respected his professional reliability. He put it in his desk drawer and closed it. Lily, informed of this development during their Saturday breakfast, looked up from her pancakes with an expression far too withering for an 8-year-old. "Dad," she said. "What?" "That's a love card. It's a professional acknowledgement. It has a heart on the front. It's a geometric shape." Lily put down her fork and stared at him with the patient, suffering look she had recently begun deploying in situations she found exhausting. "You're being really bad at this," she said, and picked her fork back up. February became March. March became a pattern. Every Thursday, Catherine walked to the coffee shop 2 blocks from the office rather than using the building's machine. Marcus had mentioned once that he also preferred it. Now, on approximately half of all Thursdays, she knocked on his open office door at 10 a.m. and said, "I'm heading out. Want to come?" He always went. They would walk the 2 blocks and stand in line and talk about everything except the thing. He learned that she'd grown up in a house with too many brothers and not enough quiet. That she'd wanted to be an architect before she fell sideways into business. That she still sketched buildings in the margins of her meeting notes when she thought no one was looking. She learned that Marcus's father had worked 3 jobs and never once complained about it. That Lily slept with a stuffed elephant named Gerald who had been repaired with safety pins 4 times. That Marcus still hadn't fixed the kitchen sink but was now emotionally attached to the process of not fixing it. They always walked back together. She always slowed down near the building entrance, stretching the time by 30 seconds, then a minute, until someone inside would spot them through the glass and she'd push through the door. Danny had by this point abandoned the tally and graduated to active intervention. "Man," he said one Thursday afternoon, watching Marcus return to his desk with 2 coffees and a serene expression, "she bought you a coffee again, didn't she?" She was already going. "Marcus, buddy, pal, it's just coffee, Danny." Danny put his head briefly on his desk. The thing happened on a Wednesday in April. It was not a Thursday. There had been no plan. Marcus had stayed late to finish a report that needed to go out before morning, and the building had emptied around him without his noticing, and when he finally looked up from his screen it was nearly 8 o'clock and the floor was dark except for the lamplight over his desk and the lights still on in Catherine's corner office. He went to say goodnight. This was normal. This was professional courtesy. She was standing at her window with her back to the door, looking out at the city. She was still in her work clothes but her jacket was off and her arms were crossed and she was very still in a way that was different from her usual stillness. "Hey," he said from the doorway, heading out. "Just wanted to say hey, I need to tell you something." She didn't turn around. He stopped. "I've been trying to find a way to say it that doesn't make everything complicated," she said. "I've been trying for months. I've had approximately 14 sensible conversations with myself about professional boundaries and power dynamics and the 14 reasons this is a terrible idea." A short, humorless exhale. "And then you do something like spend 10 minutes on a Thursday telling me about Gerald the elephant and why safety pins are structurally superior to thread and I just..." She stopped, turned around. Her eyes were bright, not crying, but close to it, the particular brightness of someone who has been holding something in long enough that their body is staging a protest. "I left you that card," she said. "I bring you coffee every Thursday. I know how you take it. I know that you hum when you're proofreading and you don't realize you're doing it. I know that you check your phone exactly twice an hour in case Lily's school calls. I have reorganized my entire morning schedule around a 2-block walk I do not need to take." Her voice was completely steady, which somehow made it more devastating. "Marcus, what do you think is happening here?" He opened his mouth. He had the sudden sensation of a man watching a film he'd already seen, realizing at the last minute that he'd completely misread the ending. "I thought," he started. "If you say you thought I was just being friendly," she said, "I am going to lose my mind." "I thought," he tried again, and stopped, because the honest answer was that he had not allowed himself to think. He had seen everything and looked away from all of it, deliberately, because hope was expensive and he had stopped buying things he couldn't afford. "Marcus," her voice broke just slightly, at the edges. "I know," he said. "I don't think you do. Catherine, I love you." She said it the way she did most things, directly, without softening it into something safer. But her voice cracked on the second word, and then she made a sound that was half laugh, half something else, and pressed her fingers briefly to her eyes. "I love you, you idiot. I have been standing in front of you for months. I've been embarrassingly obvious. Danny from your team has been watching this whole thing with the energy of a man who has lost the will to live, and you have just..." She gestured, helplessly, at all of him. "I thought I didn't get to," he said. She stilled. "What?" "I thought..." He crossed the room, and something had shifted in his body, some long-held tension releasing all at once. "I thought you were being kind, that it was how you were with people you respected. I kept telling myself I was reading it wrong because..." He stopped in front of her. "Because I wanted it to be real so badly that I didn't trust myself to tell the difference." She looked up at him. Her eyes were wet now, which he had never seen before, and it made her look like a completely different person and exactly herself at the same time. "It's real," she said. "It has been real for a very long time." He reached up and tucked the strand of hair back from her face, the one that was always escaping, the one he had noticed on a beach in October and had thought about more often than was reasonable. "I know," he said. "I'm sorry it took me so long." She laughed, unsteady and relieved. "You're going to have to make it up to me." "Thursday," he said. "Coffee. No building. Just the walk." "That's a start. And I'll fix the sink." "I don't care about the sink." "Lily does. She's been calling it a life lesson in procrastination." She laughed again, and this time it was the real one, the loose, unguarded one, and he thought he would spend a considerable portion of his remaining years doing whatever it took to keep hearing it. Outside, the city carried on as cities do, indifferent, luminous, entirely unaware that a man who was very smart about most things had finally, irreversibly, figured out the one that mattered most. In the morning, Danny would arrive to find a note on his desk in Catherine's handwriting: "You can delete the tally." He framed it,